This week, we feature an intuitive life coach that has helped thousands of clients over the last 30 years. She is a medium, an animal communicator, a horse whisperer, remote viewer, and author of The Cowgirl Shaman Way, 7 Easy Steps to Develop Your Intuitive Ability, and her new book, Intuitive Communication. I'd like to welcome Terri Jay to the show. How you doing, Terri?
I'm great, Dylan. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for, taking the time to be with us today. Before I started recording, I had mentioned off air that, you're only the second person I've had on my show that's actually claimed they've had the ability to communicate with animals, which I find fascinating and very interesting. And I've interviewed quite a few psychics in my over 100 interviews at this point. But you had mentioned something interesting to me. I'd like you to maybe share with the audience about that.
What were you talking about?
Just that you think that, more people have this ability.
Oh, everybody has it.
Yeah.
Dylan, everybody has it. That's why I wanted to write the first book, because we're all born with intuition, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, and claircognizance. Clair just means clear. So we have clear feeling, clear knowing, clear seeing, clear hearing. We all have all of that, unless you have cognitive abilities, which we know some people do. But everybody can do this. That's what I'm so excited about, because it changes your life when you realize this is just energy. It's physics. The energy is out there for everyone to learn to listen to in a different way.
Now, so you say in a different way, meaning that, everybody's different and they have to find their own path or their own way to tap into this, or?
Well, I think that's part of it. But the big thing is that everybody wants to make this woo-woo, like, it's all mystical. I don't even like the word psychic, because psychic means not of the physical sciences, right? And everything is physics. Even God is physics. So there's not, it's sorry for the double negative, but there's nothing that is not of the physical sciences. There's nothing that's not physics. So it's learning to listen in a different way, because everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. I think all of us are like big cell phone towers. We're receiving information, and then, if we're listening, then we can share that information where appropriate.
Yeah, I get that. And I've heard other people, say that they believe that, we're able to receive information in different, it's almost like a radio station or something. You tune to the right radio frequency, you're able to pick up on, other things.
Absolutely.
They're all happening at the same time, but you're only tuned into, one at a time.
Right. Even the other side isn't someplace else. People don't leave. They don't go to heaven. They're right here. It's just that they're vibrating at a different frequency. So if we want to listen to people that have passed away, or animals that have passed away, which, oh my goodness, that's so healing to get messages from the animals, we just have to listen in a different way. And the mistake that most people make when they're trying to learn to do this is they get too much into their question or thought. And all animals are telepathic, so it doesn't matter if you're communicating with them when they're alive or past. As you're starting to form a mental question, they've already sent you the answer. So people want to communicate with animals the same way they do with people. And it's like, so how are you feeling today? And then they wait, and you hear crickets, And so with an animal, all mental sounds like this. Hey, it's that fast. So that's why we miss it.
That's pretty cool. At what event or moment did you realize, maybe that you were a little more sensitive, or at least aware of your abilities than other people? Like, was it when you were younger? I mean, what had happened? What happened? Take us back.
Dylan, this is just bizarre. It's just bizarre. I'm a down-to-earth cowgirl. I'm out there shoveling manure every morning. I don't think you could get more down to earth, right? And so what happened is I did a horseback therapy program with disabled kids. And I picked a kid up out of his wheelchair and put him on the back of one of the horses. And he said, ouch, I have a cramp in my hip. And I looked at him and I said, you have a cramp? Well, here, sit this way. It'll take the cramp out. I've been doing it for so many years. I knew exactly what they needed when they were on the horse. And he looked at me and he said, hey, you can hear me. And I said, well, of course I can hear you. It didn't dawn on me at the time that he was completely nonverbal. So that was back in 1990. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather.
That's interesting.
So, yeah. So we continued our therapy, and then I took him off the horse and put him back in his wheelchair, and he went back to class. And the gal that was helping me said, boy, he's sure talking good. And I said, well, he's very bright. Just because he has CP doesn't necessarily mean that he has any intellectual disabilities. And she looked at me and she said, Terri, he didn't say a word. He can't, remember? And I mean, I got so spooked at that. If I was a horse, I would have done a butt fart snort, because they do all three of those things at the same time when they're spooked. And so I went into the classroom and they put a band around his head with a pointer, and he had typed out on his computer, horse lady can hear me. So it was pretty amazing. And so by the time I got in there and he had typed that out, and the teacher's looking at what's on the screen and looking at me and, like, what's going on here? And then I stood there communicating with him and really realized that I could hear him telepathically. We all have that ability. We just shut them off in childhood. So I went back outside, and I mean, I was really in shock because, I'd never done cards, never been to anybody. And I figured anybody who did readings was a charlatan, really, because I'd had no exposure. And the gals just said, well, you ought to learn to communicate with the horses because all animals are telepathic. And then wouldn't that make your program really safe? And I was like an idiot. Okay, yeah, I'm going to learn to do that. So anyway, one thing led to another. And I did readings in person. And then it's like people would call me and they'd say, I need you to come to talk to my horse because, and then I finished the sentence. And then I went, oh, shoot, how am I going to get paid? So it was, before, the internet was new, and it was before they had PayPal and all that good stuff.
Right.
But then I started realizing that I didn't have to be there to do it. So that opened up, the whole world basically to do readings.
Right. Right. Your personal development with clients, can you maybe walk us a little bit through the process? And this may touch on your first book and maybe even both of your books a little bit with this, but kind of how does that work?
Well, I believe that everybody has these abilities, and I want to demystify it. And so I love teaching clients how to do this. And I tell people, get my book, give it a try, really focus on grounding because that's the most important part of it. And let me know how it goes for you. But I do an awful lot of intuitive life coaching because people have lost their power. We're born powerful. We've just come from source energy. And little by little, people take your power. They say you can't because, and they tell you girl or boy, stupid, ugly, whatever. By the time we hit puberty, we're really a mess. So what I tell people is take your power back. Think of who took your power, write them a letter, tell them off, and then burn the letter while you say out loud, nobody's ever going to treat me like that again. And this is so, so effective. And then it sort of clears the way for you to become empowered and then embrace these abilities.
That's interesting. So you're basically empowering people is kind of the start of the process.
Yeah. Because if you're wallowing around in negative energy that you're carrying around with you, and this is so bizarre, but I picture people carrying one of those 15-foot long cotton sacks that the cotton pickers used to use, right?
Right.
And we're dragging that sucker around with us. And the only thing that's in there is our negative stuff. I think all the positive stuff just sort of flies around your head like fairies or something, because that's all the happy, high vibration stuff. But we drag all that negative stuff with us all the time. And, you could tap somebody on the shoulder and go, hey, why don't you cut that strap that's, attached to that sack of your garbage and let it go, walk away from it. And it's like, no. And it's like this feeling of lest I forget, lest I forget who has hurt me, who has, made my life hell. And it's very difficult for people to process out the negative things that have happened to them and let them go. They don't serve. And yet people still want to do that.
Yeah, and it can cause sickness and disease as well, right?
Disease is issues in the tissues. You know, you can have a set of twins, they've got identical genetics, right? Identical genetics. And they'll say, well, we have this specific gene for a specific disease, so we're going to get it. Well, they have different emotional experiences. So the one who has negative emotional experiences and doesn't release those experiences will get the genetic disease, while the other twin is fine. And it's that unknown. You know, we're energy beings in little meat suits.
From your experience, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. From your experience though, is once somebody has reached a point of where they have a disease, are they able to reverse it, or maybe even just help with the symptoms by freeing themselves and empowering themselves?
Oh, I think so. I absolutely think so. And there's always energy healing. I love energy healing because, and I give it to anybody who wants it. You know, just email me, I will send it to you. And, you know, we just don't realize that disease is issues in the tissues. You know, really, it is. People want to focus on, you know, the genetic or biologic, and they don't focus on the energy when we're 99% energy. You know, cells respond to emotions, Dylan. We just don't get that. And I tell people, how did you feel physically when you first fell in love? You know, it's like your feet don't touch the ground. You're glowing. You're just, you know, lighter than air, higher than a kite, physically. And then how do you feel when you're grieving? It's like you're wearing cement overshoes. And it's because the emotions get communicated to the cells, and all the cells communicate with the brain and vice versa. So people just don't pay attention to that. I've had clients that were told they were terminal, that through energy healing are now fine 15 years later.
Can you maybe, without, you know, giving away details of your client or anything like that with, you know, client privilege, but can you maybe share a story where you helped with maybe energy healing to impact somebody's life?
Well, I'm usually, if they don't want to do it themselves, I'll refer them out. It would be unethical for me to say, oh, sure, you know, let me do it for you. No, If they don't want to do it to themselves, I refer them out. It would be unethical for me to do that. But I have a client who was diagnosed with lymphoma, given 6 months to live with treatment. And I sent this client to an energy healer that I use. And the client had one session and had another scan 2 weeks later. And her doctor called her up and said, what the hell did you do? It's gone. It's completely gone. We have never seen anyone with terminal lymphoma have it disappear. That's just one case. And I just did one with it was just medical intuitive, where it was a nonverbal. Let's see, how to explain this. She's 30 years old, but functions at a 3-year-old level. And it wasn't energy healing, but I did medical intuition and told her mom that she had severe pain in her abdomen having to do with the female organs. And I said, you need to get her to medical care as soon as possible. Come to find out, she had a twisted ovary, a football-sized tumor, and not a baseball, softball-sized tumor, all attached to her female organs. She had a hysterectomy and then was fine. So that's using medical intuition. This child, I'm going to call her a child even though she's 30, she couldn't do energy healing on her own. She would have had to have had someone, you know, do it for her because of the cognitive disability. So I've had other people that were told they had breast cancer and they had energy healing done or did it for themselves and it disappeared. Same thing. So it's amazing how it works.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you know, I've I kind of follow a lot of people that talk of this work, and it's just so fascinating to me. Um, and I buy in and I believe a lot of the truths behind it. Personally, I still struggle to try to overcome, my own health issues, and I often wonder if I'm just not, I don't know, just something ain't lining up right. I'm not letting go of something, or
It can be childhood issues. Make sure you email me and I'll send you the energy healing instructions. And it can be childhood issues. And oh my goodness, it can even be a past life issue.
right. Yeah, that's true.
Past life issue.
That's
I
true.
work with people that in their past life died in concentration camps. And they have issues now. And I really want people to know, though, that when someone passes, everything negative gets shed off in the moment of passing. All our negative energy garbage gets shed off. So while we're on the other side, we're happy campers. But we may bring forward a challenge as an opportunity for growth, for spiritual growth, into our next incarnation. We might choose to do that. And of course, we're not making the decision as a human, we're making it as a God being, as source energy being.
Right.
So that's why people want health issues. They want them as challenges.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it's perhaps something that you didn't even maybe accomplish in that lifetime that you want to try to challenge yourself again in the next one.
Right. And of course, if we were humans making those decisions, it'd be, oh no, that sounds way too hard.
No, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we go, this would be very appropriate for me to use this as a challenge my next time around. And I think we bring forth big life challenges too as opportunities.
Right. It makes sense. What are some of the animal services that you offer?
Oh, I love doing animal communication. I can't make this stuff up. It's like too specific. I love talking with horses. I have a lot of, world champion barrel racers that are clients. And I love talking to barrel horses. I just sort of got into that groove. And so a lot of the barrel racers use me. And, the horses are so specific about what they need and what they want and where they hurt. I can't make it up. And then I love doing dogs and cats. I'm a big animal person, and I have horses of my own too. But the things that dogs and cats tell me to share with their owners, most cats will say I have them very well trained, except for, and dogs are like, I'm trying to heal them and they won't let me. It's so cute, how we do it. So I do animal communication. I help a lot when people are trying to make a decision about euthanasia. I can help determine quality of life issues from the animal's perspective. And then I can even tell the animal what's going to happen if they're going to choose to do euthanasia. The cool part about it is their spirit just pops out of their body and they do the wet dog shake, like, oh, that felt weird. And then they just take off like, puppies and kittens and colts, they just take off, running around like idiots. But their spirit will come back as either a walk-in or into an animal that they already have, or their spirit will find a new physical form that they are going to get. So, and you can't mess it up. It's so cool.
Now, do they tend to follow their owners once they pass on, or kind of stay attached or anything like that?
The connection is love. Love is the most powerful energy in the universe.
Yeah.
So they're always around. And it's one of the ways that I find out when I'm trying to find a lost pet. If I see that pet's energy like a hologram by the owner's feet, then I know the animal's passed. I hate doing those. But I do them. And,
right.
And I won't do indoor, outdoor, or outdoor lost cats anymore, because it just doesn't make any sense. They're going to bring it home and let it out again. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So there's no, to me, it's a waste of my time.
Can you maybe talk about horses in particular? They're such beautiful, strong, and intelligent animals. And it just seems that you have such a deep connection with them. What is it about horses, or, is there anything that makes them different from other animals?
Well, we don't ride other animals. We don't have that, and with service animals, you have a partnership, but to get on a horse and to have that horse's trust, you trust the horse trusts you. It's magical. It is absolutely magical, to do that. And I've been a lifelong horse person. I probably, won't ever stop because I just need them. I need them in my life. And ours, people tell me, oh, I can't catch my horse. And I'm like, what? Do you have cookies in your pocket? Because that's the key, is to have cookies in your pocket. And all of our horses will come to their name and the word cookie. All of them, no matter they get out, if they're in the other part of the property, you just say their name and cookie, and here they come, 100 miles an hour. They slam on the brakes right in front of you and then pick their ears up and go, I'm cute, give me a cookie. They're just, oh, I just love horses. They're just amazing. And, when I used them in the therapeutic riding program, they were just incredible. They knew what to do with the kids to elicit the best response possible. They were part and parcel of the therapy. They knew what they were doing. That was probably the biggest eye opener once I became an animal communicator and was really communicating with the horses and still doing the therapeutic riding program. I was shocked. And we had one pony that would say, okay, bring them to me. And we'd have to, have that child in front of them. I swear they were doing some kind of scan or something. She'd just take her little nose and just go up and down the child. And then she'd go, okay, put them on. It was the weirdest thing, but we had to do that with her. She was so cute.
That is fascinating. It's like they're in tune with what energy or vibration the human's giving off.
Yeah. We had one horse that was, it was her first time. And of course, it was people who go, oh my God, you didn't train them? These are broke horses. They're broke to death when we get them. And so we had one, and I was doing some kids that had learning disabilities, and she was so obnoxious, just pushing and not paying attention. And all we were doing was walking in a circle because we did vaulting. So the next kid I put on her after that class, I put on an autistic kid, and she went, and her head went up and her eyes got big and she froze. And she was telling me, I can hear him. I can hear him. Oh my goodness, I can hear him. She was scared because autistic kids are so telepathic. Oh my goodness, they're telepathic, right? Who knows what he was relaying to her, but she could hear him. And then I said, this is your job. Help the kids. And I relayed that to her. Then she was like walking on eggshells. She would just be so careful with walking. She was just paying attention, behaving herself, just didn't do anything out of line from that point on. She realized that this was her new job and she had to be good at it and she had to behave. It was so cute.
So you're able to pick up on their thoughts. Are you able to pick up on their emotions and their feelings and kind of what they're experiencing as well?
Oh goodness, yes, absolutely. They're such incredible creatures. We're halflinger addicts. We don't go to meetings. We just collect halflingers. It gets expensive.
Right.
But halflingers are draft ponies, and they're all palominos, and they're just, oh God, I just love them. They're just the best. They're pretty. They can be pretty stubborn, and willful. But once you get them on the same page with you, they're just the best.
That's wonderful. You do work in your new book, touches on autism, Alzheimer's. This is a subject that I've often pondered on, and I've known people in my family that have struggled with the disease. So I kind of want to touch, can you just maybe talk a little bit about what your book does and kind of the process of it?
This book is directed at first responders, medical personnel, and caregivers. even if you had someone, you know, family member in a coma in the hospital, the medical personnel will always tell you, just always talk to them. They can always hear you. But they don't only tell you, are you getting the consciousness, the subconscious? What are you getting? What part are you reaching? But if you learn how to do this, it becomes a two-way conversation. This, to me, is incredible. You know, where when I talk with people that are in a coma, their family members are, how do you know that? How did you get that? I'll share one story that's in my book. I was supposed to do a lost cat reading, and just as I go to call this gal, she says, I heard from guidance, cat found. And so I thought, oh, I'll call her and talk to her. And they said, no, man's sick, man's sick. And I went, okay, because that's how you kind of hear it from guidance. And so I called her up and I said, I hear you found your cat. She said, Terri, 30 seconds ago. And I said, oh, well, I heard you found your cat. And I said, I'm, you know, happy to refund your payment, but I'm hearing man's sick. And she says, oh, yes, uncle is in the hospital with a ruptured brain aneurysm. He's in a coma. And I said, do you want me to talk to him? She said, do you do that? And I said, oh, yeah, of course I do that. So I tuned into him, and it was so cool because he was like sitting on a fence. And I thought, okay, that's my way of knowing that it hasn't been decided if he's going to stay or go. So I talked with him and I said, there's a table, like a kitchen table, it's small, and it's got a vinyl tablecloth on it, and he's got all his bills stacked there. And he says, please make sure somebody pays his bills. And I said, and I'm getting the smell of green coffee. And I said, and I'm seeing this little thing that looks like a rickshaw, but it's motorized. But I don't understand the smell of green coffee. And she goes, Terri, he's a coffee farmer, you know, in Hawaii. And I said, oh, well, that makes sense. I said, what's the little rickshaw thing? She goes, well, that's how he brings the coffee beans out of the fields. So, I mean, these are the kind of details that I was getting on him. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but I usually use the other S word when I do this. Anyway, so I asked this guy, and I said, do you want us to do energy healing to see if we can heal heal what's going on in your head so you can come back? And he said, oh, yeah. So I referred them to this energy healer that I use, and he had a distance healing done from this guy. He woke up out of the coma and went home. And this is a guy that they were, the medical personnel were saying, we need to disconnect life support. There's no hope. That's pretty freaking amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he remembered talking to me, and he remembered working with the healer. He actually shared that with his family. I mean, that's just incredible stuff. I mean, we know they can hear us, but we don't know to what level. We don't know, but we're not hearing what they're saying back. And so, is it okay if I show my book? It's called Intuitive Communication, Communicating with People That Can't. And these are some of the, disabilities or medical conditions that prevent somebody from being able to do verbal communication. So anyway, I think this book can really save lives, because if let's say you're law enforcement and you come upon an unconscious person, are you going to immediately go, oh, here's some drunk laying in the gutter? Or are you going to say, wait a minute, this feels like, a medical issue. This feels like maybe a diabetic issue. And, it just makes their job easier, because they're not just going to assume. And once you do this, it opens the door to medical intuition too, where you can actually feel what's wrong, with the person. And then you can treat it differently. There's a couple of TV shows on that have people in them that do medical intuition. And yet it's still looked at as being, woo-woo. It's not, it's energy. You're reading energies. It's always physics. I always scare my doctor when I go in there. It's really funny that I walked through his office one time. I was having some hormone stuff done, and I walked in and closed the door, and I said, I know it's none of my business, and I know about HIPAA, and you can't tell me anything. And I said, but the guy in your waiting room is dying. And he goes, oh, really? He goes, what's wrong with him? And he knows me, he knows what I do. And I said, well, his sugar levels are over 400. His blood pressure is triple digits over triple digits. I said, it's really high. He could stroke out. He's got a blood clot in his right leg and his heart is in AFib. And he said, and how do you know that? I said, I walked past him. He said, you got all that from walking past him? I said, yeah, I did. So he calls his nurse in and he goes, we're not naming any names. And he said, but what was his BP? She goes, I told you, it's triple digits over triple digits. She goes, and he goes, sir, does he have a blood clot in his right leg? She goes, I told you that. And he says, did you check his sugar? She goes, yeah, it's over 400. And so, and he goes, did you check his heart? She goes, I told you, it's an AFib. And she goes, oh, I got to go. The ambulance is here. So they called an ambulance on him.
Wow.
But I didn't know any of this. I just walked past him and got all of that. So, I was in there getting infusions one time because I had, I have aluminum poisoning. Don't put aluminum foil on your lasagna, okay? It dissolves the foil and then you eat it, the aluminum. So don't do that. It has nothing to do with deodorant, by the way. Anyway, people would walk past the door where I was getting the infusions and he'd come back and stick his head and go, what'd you get? On everybody that walked across. So we really have fun on it. He's also the medical editor on the book too. So it was fun doing that.
That's really cool. That's really neat. Now, these people that suffer with Alzheimer's, are they still there mentally?
Yes.
They are.
As long as their body is functioning, they are still there. So
they just can't communicate.
Right. They've lost the ability to communicate. But I think a lot of times with Alzheimer's, you get their higher self.
Right.
You're connecting with their higher self or their subconscious. They're still there. They're still aware. They just don't have the ability to communicate. I've got some really funny stories about Alzheimer's patients that were nonverbal. That like one lady, once she couldn't communicate, they started giving her foods that were not on her okay list, like peas. That first thing she was yelling at me is, "They're giving me peas." So I hate peas too. So I really identified with her, and I told her daughter that, and she goes, "She's not supposed to get peas. She hates peas." But they were giving her peas, and she did go back and check, and they said, "Well, we just figured it was okay because she can't say anything." And she goes, "No, don't give her peas." And of course, then they wanted to know how they knew,
right?
How the gal knew that they were giving her peas. So it's just, there's funny stuff like that just I get all the time.
It's, in some ways, I guess it's good that they're still there, but to me, it seems terrifying to not be able to communicate and to still be in a body that, I don't know. I mean,
though, Dylan, there's usually a peacefulness about it. There is usually a peacefulness about it. And the other thing that I tell people to remember is that once they're out of their physical form, once they're disconnected, they won't remember how they died. Nobody does. I counsel a lot of parents who've lost a child in a very terrible way, and they cannot get over how they died. And the child, of course, is on the other side, bebopping around and, riding dirt bikes and having a blast on the other side, and they cannot move past the how. And the child has no memory of it. So, trying to get them to let go of the how really helps. And when I get all kinds of funny and silly things from the child, it does help.
What is it about, that disease? It's just, I don't know. It's just so tragic, I feel, for not only the person that's going through it, but also the family. And
Right.
I often think and ponder like the years that are lost that could have been.
I think they're getting pretty close to a cure. I really do.
Do you?
Yeah. And I think there's an awful lot of things you can do. I mean, I don't have any examples of people that were diagnosed that had energy healing and then were fine.
Uh-huh.
But I would not be surprised if that isn't the case.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if energy healing wouldn't cure it. And I use the cure word, I do. And let a lot of people go, oh, there is no such thing. And yeah, there is. Because if you get rid of the emotional cause, then the body and the mind can heal. There has to be an emotional cause. Sometimes I think people that get Alzheimer's, they're done living, but they're afraid to die. So it makes them just sort of fade away.
Now, for family members that are going through this, maybe you can help give them a sense of relief or an understanding. The person that can't communicate but is still aware, how are they with everything that's going on usually?
Well, you do get a lot of Alzheimer's patients that'll become combative. They'll become combative and they're difficult to work with. And I know this sounds terrible, but I say just medicate the crap out of them. Really just medicate them so they're at peace. And the other weird thing that you get is, how an infection can kill you. You can go septic and the infection can kill you.
Yes, I do. Firsthand.
Okay, so why are people that are terminal being treated for infections? Seriously. Why not just let that take them?
Perhaps motivation's money.
I don't know. I don't know, but
to keep them alive.
I dealt with this with a TBI patient.
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. That's something I've never really thought about, but you make a valid point. If they're terminal anyway.
Yeah.
Just
and the whole designation of hospice was it came about so that the person didn't have to have an autopsy. Did you realize that? If they're in designated hospice, no autopsy. And I'm probably going to get in trouble here, but they came up with sublingual morphine, sublingual morphine, so that you can overdose your family members. Seriously. Right. What? Nobody wants to be kept alive like that. Nobody.
No.
And this is one of those things where I relay that a lot when I'm dealing with TBIs and Alzheimer's and dementia patients. They are terminal. So what is the point in nobody wants to be kept alive. And so most people have had that conversation, with their loved ones at some point. And I know parents that have dedicated their lives to keeping alive a child that has no cognitive function at all.
I think the very
why.
Yeah, the very definition of life, or at least how I define life, they're not living it. They're not having that experience.
Right.
So why continue?
Exactly. So this is why it's really important for people to always have advanced directives too. My husband and I both have one. Mine says take to woods and bury deep. So, but we have that because, we know. And of course, with me being able to communicate, if something happened to my husband, the communication's still going to go on. We're still going to be yippee yapping with each other. My mom drives me crazy. Oh my goodness, she's been gone 3 years. We were out cleaning yesterday and all the manure was frozen. And so it took a lot longer. And I'm out there chipping away, trying to get the poop picked up. And I hear, it's 8 o'clock. Just that loud. And I went, what? So I asked him, I said, is it 8 o'clock? And he looks at his watch and he goes, straight up. And I said, Mom, because we have coffee together every morning at 8 o'clock. And I was running late. I was going to be late.
That's funny.
I know, it's so fun. You know, there's times when I still miss her, but God, she drives me crazy, and I just love it. It's like an honor, you know. And my horse that died, she
Uh-huh.
stands. She used to flap her tongue on the corral panels, and you know, my horses are all weird anyway, but she used to flap her tongue on the corral panels. Just I don't know why. And so now she stands behind me and does it on my head, you know, while I'm sitting in my office. And my dog that died, his head's right on my leg all the time, looking up at me. They're never gone.
Right.
You know, it really helps your grief. You miss the physical, and oh my God, with our pooches, we miss their fur faces, you know, but they're always with us. They're not gone. That's the weirdest thing, and people don't get that.
Well, that raises a question for me. Because I mean, I've had, and I've heard other people mention, like, you know, maybe, you know, 6 months after someone close to you passes or so, you know, maybe there is a little bit of communication, or there's signs, or there's some form of communication, but sometimes it seems like there's these long periods of nothing. And is it because perhaps the person's just not opened up? There could potentially be, you know, more experiences with this, or they're not noticing it, or is there long periods where there's no
No,
communication?
no, the problem is that when you're grieving, you drop your vibration. You go into the fear vibration, which is the lowest vibration possible.
Mm,
You know, the fear is, will I get through this?
mm,
You know, what if this happened to me? It could bring us up all our fears about death. So when you drop your vibration, you are not a match to the vibration of the other side. You know, I talk to people that have passed instantly. You know, my mom woke me up when she died, and we had a great conversation. So it's the fact that the person who's grieving has a lower vibration, so they can't pick up on the high vibration from the other side. That's all it is. It isn't that they don't want to talk to you, or they're busy, or
right.
I've had people go, oh, well, they have to go through the 7 steps of, and I went, oh, wait a minute. There's no numbers on the other side. What are you talking about? They don't go through anything. They just go back to the way they were before they came into physical form. That's
Right.
it.
And then even if they incarnate again, they still have the ability to communicate as that person from a higher
As they
self.
were,
Yeah.
as they were,
Yeah.
sure.
That's cool.
Yeah. The big thing that people get, I think, wrong or just don't understand is that reincarnation is not linear.
Right.
You can put 10 spirits in one body, one spirit in 10 bodies. So, I mean, I've had people that lost one dog and then for shits and giggles got 2. And then they say the dogs, each one of the dogs has picked up behaviors and personality traits of the one that died. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I
that's
mean, to me, that's normal stuff.
that's
Right?
interesting. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It's not linear. I mean, that's as far as reincarnation goes, that's the most important part to remember is it can be linear, but it's not. And is the person still on the other side? The person, the animal still on the other side? Yes. Have they reincarnated into a new form? Yes. Are they going to be there when you cross as they were? Yes, but they're going to look really good. Everybody looks like they're 20, right?
I love it. I love it.
But they're around all the time. That's the coolest thing, is they're around us all the time. You know, they're not gone. I mean, people, oh, they're gone. No, they're not. They're just non-physical. They're non-physical energy beings. And I think a lot of times they just sort of give up trying to get through to their relatives that, hey, I'm right here. Hello, I'm right here. And it's never cold. It's never cold, like, or scary like you see in TV and movies. When somebody from the other side touches you, it's warm and tingly. And so, you know, you see people going like this, like, you know, that's because their mom just came and kissed them on the forehead and they could feel it. Like, is it a hair? Is it a bug? They'll do this. Oh, something's on my hand. No, you're being touched by somebody on the other side. You know, it's pretty cool.
That is cool. Can we touch on a little bit of like your remote viewing work and what you've done? That's another fascinating thing that I think that people do. That's just, I mean, it's pretty much proven that it exists, right? Because the government's used it
Sure.
spy and to do things with remote viewing. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Oh, I love doing it. I use it a lot when I'm trying to find lost pets, but there have been times that I've used it to find water. I do map dowsing too. So it's map dowsing and remote viewing at the same time. And I find lost pets using it. There was this one, these people that got a dog that was like 4 years old, and the dog had stopped being used for breeding. So they tried to find a nice home for it. And these people drove like 4 hours to go pick this dog up. And they got home and just figured the dog was fine. They opened the door, the dog took off. Strange people, strange place, the dog bolted and took off. The dog's confused. And that one, I remember it so clearly because I'm smelling chicken droppings. I won't use the S word. And I said, it's a backyard operation, but it's a lot of chickens, like 30, 40 chickens. I'm smelling chicken poop. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, and hang on. No, I'm also smelling fresh cut wood. So this feels like some kind of a place where they sell firewood. And the guy's on the phone, he goes, I know where that is. And I said, hang on, I hear a stream. I said, there's a stream or creek in this area. He goes, yeah, there's a big creek in that area. I said, okay, that's where the dog is, right between. And they had to call me back and said, Terri, you are not going to, this was 5 miles from where the dog went, bolted out of the car. So it's a matter of, doing map dowsing, getting a feel for the area energetically, you tune into the area, but I'm actually seeing and smelling what's going on in that area. So I know a lot of people do remote viewing and they'll say, well, I see this. No, I was smelling stuff.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's bizarre for me. Half the time I get off the phone and just shake my head like, what did you just do? Oh my God.
It's almost falls in line with like that theory of, there is no distance, there is no space, that everything's kind of all one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I love doing that stuff. I've even done them all over the world where this one gal called me and she was sick. And I said, you were in the Mediterranean. And she said, yes. And I said, you had shellfish. She said, yes. And I said, you've got a parasite from the shellfish. She goes, I got tested for it. I said, they missed something. And of course, she lived in her bathroom for 6 months, if you can imagine. And I said, no. I said, it's shellfish. So I was like taken to the Mediterranean. I'm at the Mediterranean. I'm at a cafe. I'm sitting there and watching her eat shellfish. So did I just get that or hear that? No, I was transported there to do that and see that and feel that. And of course, she went back, got tested again, and sure enough, it was cleared up with one other dose of whatever she took. So she was fine. It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre what I do. Sometimes I think about that show, The Curse of Oak Island, and I go, yeah. I want to go there. And then I start looking remotely and I go, stop it, because there's nothing I can do with the information.
Right.
About what I would see, what I would find.
Right. Yeah, that is an interesting show.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I found gold for this guy. This guy he had a claim.
I've seen that on your website. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and he was panning this creek, and I said, you can't pan this creek again until you get runoff. And I said, but if you go here and there and there, and I was showing this other place, and I said, be really careful because there's artifacts, Native American artifacts in the area. And I said, so make sure you mark latitude and longitude for where the artifacts are, because you'll want to tell one of the universities or one of the tribes or something that there's artifacts left there. And then I said, but this is where you want to go. And oh my God, he raked in a haul and found the artifacts. So that was pretty fun.
Good for him. Wow. That's impressive. And I like how you can kind of just pretty much tap into anywhere. Yeah. And be there. Wow.
Yeah. There are places that I, don't want to go. I mean, it's why I won't do police work, because
right.
that's it's so negative, and most of the time you have to drop into the perp and ugh, I
Yeah.
tried it a couple of times. I was actually a suspect, I think, one time, because a friend of mine said, "Hey, you getting anything on that double homicide that happened?" And I went, And then of course I went blah 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 and told him all these details. And I get home and there's the sheriff waiting for me. They wanted to know how I knew all this stuff that
Yeah.
wasn't public information.
Right.
So
Yeah. I interviewed a lady that worked with detectives and police on a few cases. They're actually making a movie about one of her cases, and
oh, cool.
she had the same kind of thing that she just kind of stopped doing it because
Yeah, I don't like doing
it was hard on her. It
it.
was
It is. It makes me physically ill. I'm in a series that's coming out too. I'm so excited about
what
that.
what's the series? Tell us about that.
Well, I can't name names about, who's going to do it and everything, but I had a client and he called me and um, he said, my brand new bride is insisting that I put her name on all of my assets. And he says, I think it's too soon. And he said, she's being really horrible about it. I said, geez, she feels like a hooker. And he said, what? I said, yeah, it's like she wants to get paid for sex, but she doesn't want money on the dresser. She wants stuff. And he went, seriously? I said, it's so strong. I'm going to tell you, get tested and don't sleep with her again and get ready to get divorced. And he said, you're serious? I said, wait a minute. I said, she's not there all the time, is she? He said, no, she takes care of her grandmother who has Alzheimer's on the weekends. I said, no, she's hooking. So we hired a private detective, and sure enough, she was a hooker, a madam. She was doing sex trafficking, passport fraud, the whole 9 yards. So they're making a series about it, and hopefully it'll come out this year.
Wow.
And I'm playing myself. It's kind of a stretch, but I hope I can do it.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty fun.
you have to let me know when it comes out and give me some
Oh, yeah.
information. I can share it on
You'll
my
hear
social
about
media.
it.
That's awesome.
But if I wouldn't have told him, he would have just tried to make up with her and tried to smooth things over and, make it right with her. And
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like you saved him a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And I said, you need to contact the previous husbands. And he said, there's more than one. I said, yeah. And so once he got with the other husbands, then it was like everything became really clear.
Wow.
Ex-husbands, I should say.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, she's really bad. And a couple of years ago, she killed her parents and made it look like a murder-suicide. But where this happened, all the cops are on the take, so they never prosecuted her.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Pretty bad. There's people like that out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I can never wrap my head around that. I've talked about on my show before how people could feel or think in such a evil, or maybe not evil, I don't know if evil is the correct word, but just it's so different than the place that I come from that I can't I don't understand it.
Yeah. There's just sociopaths and psychopaths, and they're out there and they just don't think or act the same way that you and I do.
Right. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. I don't want to keep you any longer, but where can guests find the work that you're doing? Check out your new book. Where can they pick that up?
The books are on both on Amazon. This is the one that teaches you how to do everything I do, and then this one's specifically for medical personnel, caregivers, and first responders to learn how to communicate with people that can't. And my book on mediumship is in the works. I'm doing good on that one. And that's going to be very scientifically based in physics. So I think people really resonate with that. And then, so the best place to get me is my website, www.terrijay.com. And you can email me from there. And if anybody wants the energy healing instructions, I'm happy to send them. And that way you can start doing, energy healing on yourself.
That's wonderful. And thanks for sharing that. I think that's vitally important. And listeners out there, if you need energy healing, put it to good use, put it to use. It could
And
change your
it's
life.
really cool. If you learn how to do this, you can actually coach other people through it.
Right.
And I think it's really important for people to learn that they have to do the healing themselves. Otherwise, if they, like with Reiki or something, lie on the massage table and I will heal you, you still don't get your power back. So it
Right.
may help you for a short time, but not in the long run.
That's
The healing has to be done by yourself.
that's valid. It's
Yes.
valid point. Well, thanks again for being on the show. It's been a wonderful
Thanks for
discussion.
having me, Dylan. It's really been fun.
Thank you.